down 2 goals with barely 20 minutes left on the clock in Atlanta, and somehow, by the final whistle, Argentina were still standing. Grab a seat. Today, 3 friends replay the wildest 20 minutes of the World Cup, and along the way, we'll catch 8 idioms. Being up in the air, hitting a snag, landing in a pickle, keeping your eye on the ball, smooth sailing, going down to the wire, being up to scratch, and running against the clock.
Okay, did either of you catch the Argentina-Egypt game yesterday afternoon?
Caught every single minute of it. Man, what a match.
I completely missed it, actually. Was it as crazy as everyone's saying?
Crazier. For most of the second half, I genuinely had no idea who was going to win.
Really? I thought Argentina was the favorite going in.
On paper, sure, but out on the pitch, the result was totally up in the air until the last few minutes.
Wait, up in the air? Like nobody knew what would happen?
Exactly. Egypt had a real lead for most of the match. Nothing was decided.
That's wild for a defending champion.
That's the World Cup for you. Nothing's guaranteed, especially in the knockout rounds.
Okay, now I need the play-by-play. Where do we start?
Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta. Round of 16. Let's go back to the 15th minute.
Ooh, right at the start. I'm ready.
Me too. Don't skip anything.
I won't. Trust me, you want every second of this one.
So, walking in, would you have called the outcome either way?
Honestly, no. It really was up in the air right to the closing minutes.
Now I'm hooked. Keep going.
Let's pause on the phrase, up in the air. Something is up in the air when it hasn't been decided yet. The outcome could still go either way. It's the feeling of genuine uncertainty, not knowing which way things will land. Picture a coin or a ball tossed straight up. While it's still hanging in that suspended moment, nobody can say where it will come down. That image of undecided suspension became a stock phrase for any uncertain situation by the early 20th century. Use it for outcomes and decisions, not objects literally being thrown. A common mix-up is treating it as just exciting. It specifically means undecided, not thrilling. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. The result was totally up in the air until the last few minutes. Whether we're eating outside or inside is still up in the air because of the weather. Her job offer is still up in the air. She hasn't heard back from the company yet.
So 15 minutes in, Egypt won a corner.
Who took it?
Marwan Atiyah curled it into the box, and Yasser Ibrahim just rose above everybody.
I remember that header. He absolutely powered it in.
Right past the goalkeeper. 1-0 Egypt, and the stadium went absolutely nuts.
Wow, that early?
15th minute. And it wasn't a fluke. The delivery was perfect, and Ibrahim just outjumped the whole Argentina backline.
So, Argentina hit a snag right out of the gate.
Hit a snag, meaning like a problem stopped them?
Exactly. Everything was going fine, and then boom, this unexpected setback.
That's a good way to put it. Nobody expected Egypt to strike first, let alone from a set piece like that.
Was it Ibrahim's first international goal?
Second, actually. But it was the goal of his life, given the stage.
You could see it rattle the Argentina supporters in the stadium, too.
Completely. One header, and suddenly the whole mood shifted.
So, they hit that snag and just had to deal with it.
Right. The whole rest of the game was about how they responded.
Let's pause on the phrase, hit a snag. To hit a snag is to run into a sudden, unexpected problem that stalls your progress. It's not a total disaster, just a hidden obstacle you didn't see coming. A snag is a jagged branch or tree stump hidden just under the water, the kind that could tear open the hull of a riverboat without warning. 19th century steamboat pilots on American rivers used hit a snag, literally, and it drifted into everyday speech for any hidden setback. It's best for small to medium setbacks that are frustrating but fixable, not for catastrophes. Save bigger disasters for stronger phrases. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. Argentina hit a snag right out of the gate. We hit a snag with the printer right before the deadline. Their road trip hit a snag when the rental car broke down.
Okay, so Egypt's up 1-0. What happened next?
Well, Argentina got a big chance to level it. Messi stepped up for a penalty.
I was sure that was going in.
So was I. But the Egyptian keeper, Mostafa Shobir, guessed right and saved it.
Oh no, that must have hurt.
It did, and it got worse. Egypt broke forward on a counterattack, and Mostafa Zico finished it off.
2-0. In the 67th minute, right?
67th, yes. Clean, confident finish after a quick break down the flank.
So Argentina's down 2 goals, and their best player just missed a penalty.
Exactly. They were in a real pickle at that point.
In a pickle. That means stuck in a tough spot, right?
Right, like there's no easy way out and time's ticking.
That's the situation. 2 goals down, missed penalty, and the clock's already past the hour mark.
I would have assumed the game was basically over.
A lot of people probably did.
But this team has been in tight spots before. Being in a pickle doesn't mean you stay there.
Foreshadowing, huh?
You'll see.
Let's pause on the phrase, in a pickle. Being in a pickle means being stuck in a difficult or awkward situation with no obvious way out. It's a light, almost humorous way to describe real trouble. Long before it meant trouble, a pickle was a spicy vinegar and brine sauce that vegetables were tossed and jumbled around in. By the 1500s, English speakers borrowed that image, being mixed up and stewing in the pickle, as slang for being caught in a mess. It suits tricky but survivable trouble, not real danger, and is often paired with real or bit of for emphasis, in a real pickle or in a bit of a pickle. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. Argentina were in a real pickle at that point. I left my wallet at home, so I'm in a bit of a pickle. We're in a pickle. Both flights got canceled, and the hotel is full.
Look, I found the clip. Here's the goal that got them started.
Ooh, let me see.
79th minute. Messi swings in this cross from the right.
And Romero just meets it perfectly.
Watch his eyes right here. He never looks away from the ball, even with defenders around him.
He really kept his eye on the ball the whole time.
That's exactly it. Total focus, right up until the header connects.
It wasn't a spectacular leap or anything, just perfect timing and total concentration.
Keep your eye on the ball. Is that just for sports, or can you say it about anything?
Anything, really. It means stay focused on what actually matters and don't get distracted.
Romero did exactly that. 2 defenders around him, and he still connected clean.
2-1. So the comeback's starting.
Just starting. 10 minutes left, roughly, when that goal went in.
And once it went in, you could feel the momentum shift in the stadium.
I bet Egypt's players felt it too.
You could see it. Suddenly they're defending, not attacking.
1 goal back, and everything changes.
Let's pause on the phrase, keep your eye on the ball. To keep your eye on the ball means to stay focused on the most important thing and not let distractions pull your attention away. It's about discipline and concentration. It comes straight from ball sports like cricket, golf, and baseball, where the oldest coaching advice is to physically watch the ball all the way until contact. By the early 1900s, the phrase had left the playing field and become general advice for staying focused on any goal. It's usually a command or piece of advice. Keep your eye on the ball. But you can also use it as a warning when someone loses focus, as in, he took his eye off the ball. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. He really kept his eye on the ball the whole time. With finals coming up, I need to keep my eye on the ball. The company kept its eye on the ball and didn't get distracted by side projects.
Okay, 2-1. What happened next?
This is the best part. Just 4 minutes after Romero's goal.
Wait, only 4 minutes?
4 minutes. 83rd, 84th minute. The ball's bouncing around loose in the box after some chaos.
And Messi's right there.
Right there. He'd missed that penalty earlier. Remember, it hadn't exactly been smooth sailing for him.
Smooth sailing? Like an easy, trouble-free ride?
Exactly. His game had been rough up to that point. Missed penalty, team down 2 goals.
But he doesn't hesitate at all here.
Not even a little. He just pounces on the loose ball and rifles a half volley straight into the net.
2 apiece. After missing a penalty earlier?
That's what makes it so good. It wasn't smooth sailing for him that whole game, but he still delivered exactly when it mattered.
And that was his 8th goal of the tournament. Tournament leading.
8th. No wonder everyone was celebrating.
The whole stadium erupted. You could feel it through the screen.
That's the difference between a good player and the greatest of all time.
Rough game, one big moment, and he still comes through.
Let's pause on the phrase, smooth sailing. Smooth sailing describes a situation where everything goes easily, without problems or struggle. It's most often used to admit that things weren't easy before praising how it turned out anyway. It's a literal sailor's phrase. Calm seas and a steady wind mean a ship glides along without a struggle. Sailors used it for an easy voyage, and by the 1800s, people applied it more broadly to any effort that goes smoothly, with no rough water in sight. It's most powerful in the negative. It wasn't smooth sailing. Acknowledging real struggle right before describing a win, exactly like Messi's night. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. It hadn't exactly been smooth sailing for him. The move wasn't smooth sailing, but we got settled in the end. Her first year at the new school wasn't smooth sailing, but she made great friends.
So it's 2-2. Deep into stoppage time now.
How deep?
90 plus 2, and the board's showing 7 minutes of stoppage.
This is the one that got me out of my seat.
Lautaro Martinez picks up the ball out wide and curls in this long cross.
And what happened?
And Enzo Fernandez comes flying in from midfield, completely timed his run, and heads it into the far corner.
3-2. But with 7 minutes up, it was far from over.
That's unbelievable. So, literally, the winning goal came down to the wire?
Down to the wire. Yes, exactly. It wasn't decided until the very last moment possible.
Down to the wire? Like a photo finish?
Same idea. Nobody knew who'd win until basically the final second.
Holding that lead through 7 minutes of stoppage. About as down to the wire as it gets.
So they went from down 2-0 to winning it in stoppage time.
3 goals in about 13 minutes. That's an incredible turnaround.
And it all came down to the wire on that very last play.
I need to watch this whole match now.
You really should.
Let's pause on the phrase, down to the wire. When something goes down to the wire, it stays undecided until the very last possible moment. It describes a close finish where you truly don't know the outcome until the end. It comes from 19th century horse racing, where a thin wire was strung across the finish line so judges could tell which horse's nose crossed first in a close race. When a race wasn't decided until that wire, it went down to the wire. Save it for genuinely close, suspenseful endings. Not something that was never really in doubt. And it's often used as a full sentence. It came down to the wire. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. The winning goal came down to the wire. The election came down to the wire, decided by just a few hundred votes. She finished her paper down to the wire, submitting it minutes before midnight.
Okay, I'm still stuck on this. How do you trail for that long and still win?
Let's look at the actual numbers. Here, check the stats page.
64% possession for Argentina. That's huge.
It is. And look at the expected goals, 2.9 for Argentina versus 0.97 for Egypt.
What does that even mean, in plain terms?
Basically, based on the quality of chances created, Argentina should have scored close to 3 goals. Egypt's chances were worth less than 1.
So even at 2-0 down, Argentina was actually playing well?
Exactly. Their performance was more than up to scratch the entire match. It just hadn't shown up on the scoreboard yet.
Up to scratch, meaning good enough, meeting the standard?
Right. Even while they were losing, the level of play met or beat expectations.
What about shots?
19 total for Argentina, 9 on target. Egypt only had 5 shots, 3 on target.
So, Egypt was scoring off way fewer chances.
Much fewer. Argentina created 4 big chances to Egypt's 2 and completed 582 passes at 89% accuracy.
And Egypt?
211 passes, 74% accuracy. Argentina dominated territory. Egypt just defended narrow and compact.
So, the performance really was up to scratch the whole time, just unlucky early on.
That's the story the numbers tell.
Let's pause on the phrase, up to scratch. Up to scratch means meeting the required standard. Good enough, with nothing missing. It's a quality judgment. Does this measure up to what's expected? It comes from old boxing and foot racing, where a literal line, the scratch, was drawn on the ground as the starting mark. A fighter had to walk up to that scratch line unaided to prove he was still fit to continue. So being up to scratch meant proving your standard hadn't slipped. It's most common in the negative, not up to scratch, as a polite way to say something falls short, but it works just as well positively, praising a performance that held up despite a bad result. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. Their performance was more than up to scratch the entire match. The restaurant's food wasn't up to scratch, so they didn't go back. My first draft wasn't up to scratch, so I rewrote the ending.
So, when did you realize Argentina might actually pull it off?
Honestly, not until Messi's equalizer. Before that, Egypt looked completely in control.
They did. 2 up, defending deep, keeper making saves. For an hour, time was on Egypt's side.
And that's what flipped. The moment it went 2-2, the clock stopped being Egypt's friend and became their enemy.
How so?
A tie deep in the game means defending with tired legs, minute after minute. Egypt were running against the clock, just trying to survive to the whistle.
Running against the clock. Racing time itself. Trying to hold on?
Exactly. Late in a match, protecting a result you're no longer sure of, every second feels like an opponent.
And a team running against the clock makes small mistakes. A half-second slow, a runner unmarked.
Which is precisely how Fernandez scored. Nobody left with the legs to track him.
So the comeback wasn't luck. It was pressure finally cracking them.
Right. Argentina kept the pressure on until the clock did the rest.
And credit them. Down 2 goals, most teams fold. They never stopped believing they had time.
One side racing the clock to hold on, the other racing it to turn things around.
Beautifully put. Same clock, opposite races.
That's what makes a comeback like this special. It's decided in those final, frantic minutes.
Down 2-0, and they still found a way. Incredible.
One of the great World Cup comebacks. No question.
Let's pause on the phrase, running against the clock. Running against the clock means racing to finish or hold on before time runs out, working or fighting under serious time pressure. It comes from stopwatch-timed sports and races, where an athlete literally competes against the ticking clock rather than a rival. The clock itself becomes the opponent that must be beaten before it expires. It emphasizes the pressure of a countdown and often pairs naturally with fatigue or difficulty. Being tired. And racing time makes the pressure feel even worse, exactly like Egypt's collapse late in the match. Now, let's practice together. Repeat after me. Egypt were running against the clock and running out of steam at the same time. We were running against the clock to catch the last train. The chef was running against the clock during the dinner rush. What a match to unpack. Let's run back through everything we caught today. First, up in the air. When nobody can predict an outcome yet, like Argentina's results before the final whistle. Then hit a snag. An unexpected setback, like Egypt's early header rattling Argentina's plans. Next, in a pickle. A tough, hard-to-escape spot, exactly where Argentina sat at 2 goals down with a missed penalty behind them. Then keep your eye on the ball, staying completely focused on what matters, just like Christian Romero tracking that cross all the way to his head. After that, smooth sailing, an easy, trouble-free run, which Messi's night definitely was not, even though he still delivered. Then down to the wire, a result undecided until the very last possible moment, exactly how Enzo Fernandez's stoppage time header settled things. Next, up to scratch, meeting the required standard, which described Argentina's play even while they were losing on the scoreboard. And finally, running against the clock. Racing time itself under pressure, which is exactly what happened to Egypt's tired legs in the closing minutes. 8 idioms. 1 incredible comeback. Nice work today. Now let's test your understanding of these idioms. For each question, listen carefully to the situation and choose the correct idiom. You'll have about 10 seconds to think before you answer. Which idiom describes a situation where nobody can predict the outcome yet? It could go either way. The answer is up in the air. Right after Egypt's early corner kick goal, commentators said Argentina had clearly blanked, an unexpected setback slowing their momentum. The answer is hit a snag. Two goals down, with a missed penalty behind them, which phrase best describes Argentina's tough, hard-to-escape spot. The answer is in a pickle. Commentators praised Romero for staying totally focused on the incoming cross without any distraction. In other words, he blank. The answer is keep your eye on the ball. Which phrase means a performance met or exceeded the required standard, even if the scoreline didn't show it yet. The answer is up to scratch. By the final quarter hour, exhausted from chasing Argentina's passing, Egypt's defense was blank. The answer is running against the clock. So there it is. 1-0 Egypt at the 15th minute, 2-0 by the 67th, and then Argentina ripping off 3 goals in 13 wild minutes to win it. 3-2 in stoppage time. The result was up in the air. Argentina hit a snag early and landed in a real pickle, but Romero kept his eye on the ball. Messi's rough night was anything but smooth sailing until he delivered anyway, and it all came down to the wire when Enzo Fernandez headed home the winner. With Argentina up to scratch throughout, while Egypt were running against the clock at the very end. The takeaway isn't just about football. Being behind doesn't mean the outcome is decided. Stay focused, keep playing your game, and you can still turn things around in the final minutes. On the pitch or anywhere else in life. And before you go, one last thing from me. These idioms only become yours when you use them. So this week, don't just recognize them, reach for them. When something's still up in the air, say it. When a plan hits a snag, name it. When it all comes down to the wire, call it. Use them at work, with friends, even in your own head. Every time you do, they stop being phrases you heard here and start being part of how you actually speak. That's the whole point. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.
Moments in English. Live the moment. Make it yours.